Welcome into another edition of New Track Record Podcast. Caleb Hatch, Justin Kinney with you. Hello, Justin.
Hello, Caleb Hatch.
Joining us in person on site.
Yes, I'm here. And, now that I helped you out to discover that the Hatch surname has a coat of arms, we need to redesign the logo for the podcast to have our coat of arms. Our shield on there. I did a way too much of a deep dive on the Hatch and Kenny surnames. And then I started looking up other surnames that are familiar in my family and spent a good hour today doing that.
Any good revelations?
Well, your surname, Hatch, is traced back, and you mentioned it kind of like German and Irish too is mixed in there. And both of our peoples ventured over in the early to mid 19th century. Basically, the potato famine was big for the Kennys to come over to leave Ireland, because Ireland is where my people are, and so it was similar to the Hatches. So maybe they shared a
ship.
Yeah, shared a ship and talked about, hey, you know what? I think in a couple hundred years, our relatives will do a podcast talking about IndyCar together. And they said, that's brilliant. So laid the seed crossing the pond while emigrating.
I must say, I was wondering how that was going to tie back to the podcast. What is that? The industry term is what, a segue?
Yeah.
And you somehow pulled it off.
Yeah. Give me enough time. I can pull it all back together. But another week of off-season IndyCar talk, and we're going to get right to it.
Yeah, we have actually a lot to get to in this off week. And at the conclusion of this episode, we will have made it, essentially, before next week's episode, a full month in the off season, which is, that's good. So let's start with the headlines this week. Dennis Hauger confirmed at Coyne, but I think the wrinkle that we did not see coming is that will be a technical partnership for Dale Coyne Racing with Andretti Global. That's pretty big. Also, we have kind of behind-the-scenes people news. This came out today as we record on Thursday, September 25th. Eric Cowden has joined Arrow McLaren, Director of Engineering. He's worked with Tony Kanaan when Kanaan was a driver across several teams, including the 2013 Indy 500 win. Then you also have Ron Rzucki, who was with Penske, let go in the Attenuator Gate scandal. He has also joined Andretti Global, a very big move for them. Team principal of Andretti's IndyCar and Indy Next programs, Rob Edwards, who's the Andretti Global CEO, will become the Chief Performance Officer of TWG Motorsports. And then, let's see. And then we had one other. Oh, Jack Harvey confirmed with Ryan Reibold as one of their Indy 500 drivers. So a lot to dive into this week. Oh, and the most obvious news of all, David Malukas officially confirmed at Team Penske in the 12 Horizon car multi-year deal. Let's start with Coyne, because I think that was maybe perhaps the most newsworthy. Yes, Penske naming a driver, but we all knew that was coming. That was coming. We'll get to that next. But Dennis Hauger, a guy who dominated Indy Lights, who came over. He raced in F2.
Yes.
So instead of making the jump, so he had multiple seasons in F3 and F2, came over to Lights, dominated first season, lands with Coyne, which we kind of knew that was a possibility going into the season finale. But I think this technical partnership with Andretti, obviously he's on loan from Andretti. I think he'll slot into an Andretti seat in 27. Pretty big deal, nonetheless.
I think whether this was in the works prior to last year or not, or long term, you look at what Foyt did, right? Foyt and Penske's relationship and how well that worked for David Malukas and Foyt. This is a home run for Coyne to get that technical alliance, technical partnership with Andretti. And yeah, it's very much a loan similar to David Malukas. And you wouldn't be surprised if it came out that Andretti is highly financing that seat, which is news to Dale Coyne's ears, right? Anywhere he can get money and get a talented driver. We didn't know much about Dennis Hauger when we started the Indy next season. Last year, he comes out and wins 4 of the first 5 races to really take control of the championship, won 2 more races after that quick start, and was able to win the championship. Very talented driver over in Europe. It's going to be, you say it's going to be a considerable adjustment period for him on ovals, but he was pretty solid on ovals last year. None of his wins came on an oval, but really impressive what he was able to do at places like Iowa and Milwaukee. He was really solid, and even Nashville. So I think the expectations for Dennis Hauger are going to be higher than a quote-unquote normal rookie. But this is really great news for Dale Coyne, both in the seat and financially. I think the question is now, who's going to be his teammate at Coyne?
And I think we've had a guess on that. I will say for Coyne, so he had the kind of the partnership with Todd and Ask ROI coming on board officially and kind of expanding. You have him doubling his shop space in suburban Chicago. You have him saying the season finale, we're going to have both our drivers announced by Halloween, which we all kind of chuckled at. But you have one car set. You already announced the shop plans. You have the sponsorship. You have the technical partnership with Andretti Global. And then one other driver to fill the other seat. And the rumor is it's Romain Grosjean's seat to lose, which he's in the news because he is getting a TPC test, testing a previous car with Haas F1, along with IndyCar's own James Hinchcliffe, who is a presenter for F1 TV. That's coming up on Friday. But you look at everything they've done before we kind of debate that second seat. This has been a huge month for Dale Coyne Racing. I mean, to go from a year ago to now, where they're at, it's stability. And yes, they hired VK late in the run. They got through the season. VK was outstanding. Obviously, he's moving on. Still waiting to figure out where that will be. But just what a change in a year's time for Dale Coyne Racing.
We felt like Rinus VK would be most benefited by staying with Coyne, and Coyne definitely would have benefited, finishing 14th in the championship. That was the best finish by a Coyne driver since Santino Ferrucci in 2020 when he finished 13th. Now the goal with all of that added money with that relationship, and also now the technical partnership, is sustaining that success with at least one car and trying to raise the bar for that second car. And as I would love to see Romain Grosjean back in the series because of how polarizing he is, obviously. And also I think he's a solid driver, and
the talent's there. He's got to be more consistent.
Right. And he wants to be in IndyCar. And I think he didn't want to leave. And now that he has an opportunity to return, and with a team that maybe is in the best position it's been in a long time, at least in this decade, you feel, and maybe that can continue the rise of this team. Don't forget, Romain Grosjean, despite not racing in 3 races in 2021, finished 15th in points with Coyne. So there's some previous success with that team, of course. And so I don't know, you put a team out with Grosjean and Hauger for 2026. I mean, those are 2 drivers and teams with the added infrastructure that should be well within the top 20, in my opinion. Not sweating victory or leader circle money late in the season.
No, I fully agree. And something about Hauger I've seen people point out, because he raced an F2, where I had to look this up to be sure, but the engine's in F2, 620 horsepower. That's actually very similar to what you have in IndyCar, not comparing to Indy Lights. So he's used to a higher horsepower car. That's, in a way, why Lights was probably so easy for him from the get-go. So he should have a lesser learning curve than most rookies coming from Lights do in IndyCar. Grosjean, obviously experienced. He's won some poles. He's been in contention for race wins. He's had podiums. The talent's there. Obviously, he first came to IndyCar with Dale Coyne Racing.
Correct.
When was
21.
it? 21? Okay. So I think that's a good team, better than we would have expected. I mean, especially when VK left, you're like, what's going on, right?
Right.
We did learn from Marshall Pruett to Racer.com, Jacob Abel not coming back to the team, so he's not really a contender. It sounds like Grosjean's kind of the guy they've locked in on. But that's a big boost on the driver's side. And then you talk about the technical partnership. So Craig Hampson's with Andretti, well thought of, obviously. You get Ron Rzucki over from Penske to take over the IndyCar side as Rob Edwards gets promoted. And then throw in Michael Cannon, who's still there with Dale Coyne Racing. So, I mean, you have two ace engineers, a guy who spent 20 years at Team Penske coming in. Combined between the two teams, you have a lot where they definitely have to be improved at Indy if you're Dale Coyne Racing, even Andretti too, at that matter. But also, I mean, Andretti's street course package and Will Power gets access with Michael Cannon now back again for the ovals. I mean, there's just a lot to like about this.
Very much so. And you looking at Coyne, 2026 could be the first year since really 2022 that you felt like they were two able-bodied drivers in the seat for the entire season, and that was Malukas and Sato. That was Malukas' rookie season. They finished 16th and 19th in points that season. The year after, you had Stingray Robb, who was a rookie, an inexperienced rookie, but brought money. And then, of course, you had the revolving door that was the seats last year in 2024 with the 18 and the 51, particularly that 51. And then Jacob Abel, I felt like left a lot to be desired in 2025. And so that lineup, I think, would be the best in several years for Coyne, even taking out the partnership with Andretti. You add that in and the technical alliance and the experience that you mentioned, it could be a very much an exciting season of progress for Dale Coyne through 2026.
You look at what Romain Grosjean did in his season with Coyne in 21, top 10 in his first race at Barber, second Indy Road Course, fifth at Road America, seventh at Mid-Ohio, second Indy Road Course, third at Laguna Seca, so several podiums. He did his first oval race. He was 14th at Gateway, and I remember that was a pretty exciting run that he had through the field. I think they did alternate tires that year for the first time, if I'm not mistaken. So,
I mean, he finished 15th in points and not racing in 3 races.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a great season, right?
Right.
So he came onto the scene charging. I mean, you go back to the 2020 lineup for Coyne as far as, the best lineup they've had. That was Ferrucci and Alex Palou as a rookie. And Palou had a podium as a rookie, and Ferrucci had several top 10s, including a 4th in the Indy 500. So this is a really strong lineup. I mean, 2019, Sebastian Bourdais and Santino Ferrucci. I mean, there's a lot to like about what we could see with Coyne, assuming it is Grosjean in that other seat. This is hearkening back to Coyne kind of more at its strong days, 5 to 10 years ago, kind of in that gap than what we've seen the last couple of years outside Arenas VK.
And it's good to see, because I've been vocal about Dale Coyne and Dale Coyne Racing about, if you're not going to be trying to get better, then you're just taking up space in the paddock. And Dale Coyne is still aggressive and wants to get better. I mean, it would be easy for Coyne to say, man, I've been doing this for over 2 decades and not getting any younger, and this would be the time to step away. But instead, he's doubling down and finding new investors and expanding his shop and working on this deal with Andretti. It's not a dude that's satisfied, barely making it in the leader circle and competing every May to try to get his cars in the Indy 500, which he's had to do each of the last 3 years, effectively, is sweat it out. And he doesn't want to do that anymore. And it's great to see this series is benefited by all of its entries trying as hard as it possibly can to climb up the standings. I don't think that's always been the case, or maybe there hasn't been enough outside investment interested in investing in teams to allow that to happen. So it's encouraging to see. right? It was Ed Carpenter Racing last year. We've heard about Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan the last couple of years, added investment. Now it's Coyne in trying to make that jump.
And you have to say, I mean, the charter's playing a role in that in terms of attracting investment. I don't like limiting entries. Like I like giving everyone an opportunity as long as they're, I don't think they still do the 107% or 105% rule, but as long as they're competitive and not a moving chicane.
Right.
But it has certainly helped some of the midfield to back end teams get considerable investment and really stabilize them moving forward. By the way, so Grosjean ran most of the races in 21 with Coyne. Unless you're looking at it, could you tell me who his full-time teammate was? You're not going to guess.
I'm not going to guess.
Probably not.
I will say, just random guess, I will say Jack Harvey.
No, Ed Jones.
Oh.
And you're never going to guess. So Pietro Fittipaldi did the first 3 ovals, but then they had a third car at some races, 3 races for Cody Ware, and 1 for Ryan Norman. Yeah.
I keep forgetting Cody Ware did IndyCar races.
Yeah. Well, that was the, Rick Ware, Dale Coyne partnership with that.
It's been messy. I mean, 2021 was messy. 2024 was very messy. And admittedly, that's when I was just extremely vocal about what are we doing here with Dale Coyne Racing. And give them credit. 2025 with Rinus VeeKay was phenomenal. They could have just run it back with Jacob Abel as long as the check cleared in 2026. But instead, Coyne looked at this and said, no, we're not satisfied with what we're getting out of Jacob Abel, despite the check we may be getting. And it's willingness to go out and get drivers or find investors or relationships with existing teams like Andretti to improve this outfit. And it's really great to see, because it would have been easy and understandable if Dale Coyne was like, I just don't have it anymore. But instead, he's really doubling down.
And Dennis Hauger, to me, feels like the most ready rookie coming into IndyCar, I would say, since Marcus Armstrong in, 23?
Yeah, 2023.
I mean, yes, he was 20th in points, but he didn't do 5 races because he didn't do the ovals. So I just think, and he had several top 10 finishes and beat out Canapino and Stingray Robb, who did all the races. I mean, it's just, and Benjamin Peterson had a tough season outside of Indy 500 qualifying that year. So, I mean, 20th in points doesn't look impressive, but when you're missing 5 races, I mean, it really does. So,
absolutely.
With Coyne, I mean, I guess my final thing on Coyne before we get to other drivers and other news, it's a complete turnaround from what we saw from 24. And even they've improved on what they put on track for 25. At least so far, we're awaiting that other seat. But if it is Grosjean, I think this is the best they've done in a while. And I think linking up with Andretti, even if it's a 1-year technical partnership, maybe it's multiple, but maybe it's just for 26. I haven't seen anything specifically say how that will work. I mean, part of it is Honda's contract ends in 26, and
so,
everyone's going to be shuffling around. But this is big for them to get a technical partnership with one of the original big 3 teams, and I'm excited to see what they do. I was excited for VeeKay and what he did, and he lived up to my hype, and we'll see what Hauger can do.
And once again, it's another example of a driver coming up in Europe. Hauger, a native of Norway, was a Red Bull junior driver for 6 years. And as we mentioned, started in F4, moved up to F3, did F2. He was with he was going to do or did he do Formula E for a little bit, and then had no path to Formula One. Came over. You mentioned it earlier. Was overqualified for lights, but said, you know what? I'm going to do lights. I'm going to prove myself, and then I'm going to earn an IndyCar seat. He did exactly that, won the championship. Now he has a full-time ride in IndyCar for 2026. It's just another success story. It's the latter, but also it's a latest example, and more eyes from Europe looking over across the pond, because you see these drivers whose paths are blocked because of lack of funds or whatever, no room, etc., coming over and getting into IndyCar, not even directly from Europe to IndyCar, but now going through next, which could see more of a viable path for F3 drivers, even F2 drivers that are out of opportunities in Europe.
And speaking of F2 drivers out of opportunities in Europe, it's looking like there'll be another kind of repeat of the Hauger scenario. Enzo Fittipaldi, brother of Pietro, grandson of Emerson, who's been in F2 for several years now. He actually tested with Juncos in lights earlier this week, so maybe he comes over and sets up for a run for IndyCar in 2027. Next should be pretty exciting with the drivers that they have. There are several confirmations that we'll get to later on, but that's another one kind of the same path that Hauger did. All right, let's move to the other big driver news, and this was not a surprise whatsoever, but we finally got confirmation that David Malukas officially confirmed in the number 12 Horizon at Team Penske Chevrolet. About time. Now, what's weird is Will Power's still under contract with Penske through the end of the year, so he can't work with Andretti till January 1st. And then you have Malukas under contract as well.
Do you think Will Power's still showing up every day to Team Penske HQ? I mean, he's obviously not, but wouldn't that just be funny, is that he just keeps showing up? He's like, hey,
yeah, why not?
Still collecting my check every 2 weeks. I'm going to be here.
Yeah, if I'm still under contract, it's like, yeah, I'm going to use the facilities, maybe get a workout in, eat lunch.
Right, yep.
Talk with the team.
Lunch buffet.
I highly doubt that's happening.
but
it would be
picturing
funny.
it like every morning they're like, oh, Will's here again. Like,
yeah, this is awkward.
Trying to keep him away from stuff,
Yeah, no, I kind of have the same thought. But for David Malukas, I mean, this is obviously the opportunity of his career to finally get this shot. And I think there are several things that make this such a fascinating hire by Team Penske. First off, he's not won an IndyCar race. When they hired Joseph Newgarden, he had won an IndyCar race. He was proven. He had finished, as high as third in the championship with whatever variation of Ed Carpenter Racing that was at the time. I think it was just ECR. Obviously, Simon Pagenaud had won races. Montoya, enough said. Will Power, enough said. Scott McLaughlin, yes, he hadn't raced an IndyCar, but his pedigree was set with what he did in supercars in Australia, multi-time champion in that series. But David Malukas, the speed's there, right? No one's going to disagree with that. 3 podiums, no wins, 0 poles. I mean, that's his IndyCar career. He's got pace in qualifying. He's had opportunities in races, especially on short ovals. He's good, which, Penske as a whole is good on short ovals. But this feels like new territory for Penske. I was trying to think of outside of 99, when they were cycling through drivers and unfortunately, lost to Rodolfo Gonzalez and just it was a mess of an era for Penske. Then I can't really think of a driver coming to the team unproven.
No, you like you mentioned, you can point to Scott McLaughlin at least in open wheel racing, but in terms of experience, it was there. I started thinking of a different angle about this too, because not only is it put pressure on David Malukas, but imagine the message that could potentially be gleaned from this move if you're Joseph Newgarden and Scott McLaughlin, because as you mentioned, Penske doesn't hire inexperienced drivers. It doesn't hire proven winners very much. And
you
yet
mean
here they are.
Unproven winners?
Or unproven winners. Excuse me. But here they are saying, you know what, we're taking a risk on a guy that we feel confident in, but maybe has not shown it yet on track. Because I think at some point, maybe comfort came in with Newgarden and McLaughlin and even Will Power is saying, well, as long as we keep winning some races and all that stuff, we're fine, because they're not going to replace us, because who are they going to go get that's experienced? And here's Team Penske going, you know what? We're just going to take a risk on a young cat that we think could be really good. And who's to say one of those other Penske drivers couldn't be replaced by somebody like Malukas in the next year or two if they don't perform? So I think even then there's a certain amount of comfort that you get at Penske if you think, hey, nobody's out there that really can match our performance, and Penske doesn't hire drivers unless they're proven. Here is somebody that isn't. And so maybe it puts a little bit of added pressure on those two guys to say, hey, this isn't the Penske of old. They are willing to take some risks on drivers and replace seasoned veterans that are still very, very good. Better than what Newgarden and McLaughlin were in 2025. So we'll see how the dynamic is switched up a little bit at Team Penske for 26, because they definitely need something, right?
I think the closest comparison I could find, and I know Paul Tracy did 3 races, I think rookie year, like at the end, and then had a part-time schedule, and then was full-time, I think, by his 3rd year. But you actually go back to 2008 when they hired Ryan Briscoe. He had done 1 full season, or most of a season, with Chip Ganassi Racing, a few top 10s, a partial schedule in 06 with Ryan Reinbold, podium at Watkins Glen. Lusco Dragon Racing, remember that team? Jay Penske's team. 2007, he did the Indy 500, was 5th. And then he was at Team Penske in 2008, and he won 3 races that season, was 5th in the championship. Obviously, had a championship shot in 2009, where he had another really good season, won 3 more races. So I guess that's the closest comparison. I mean, Malukas is fast. Briscoe was fast back then. Needed to be more consistent. Maybe that's the comparison. And Briscoe was a solid hire. Yeah, he didn't win an Indy 500 or a championship, and I get that's what you measure at Team Penske. But he won a handful of races, was solid, competed for the championship for several years. I guess that's the closest thing I could come up with.
It's a great comparison because Ryan Briscoe, you mentioned just 1 full-time season before joining Penske, and that was 3 years before joining Penske, as you mentioned, in 2005. He won an F3 championship, but A, it's F3, and B, it was 5 years before that. I mean, that was 2003, and he joined Penske in 2008. So, no, I think it's an apt comparison, Ryan Briscoe and David Malukas, and we'll see if Malukas can shadow Ryan Briscoe in the sense that he really very much hit the ground running year 1 for Penske.
I guess my final question on the Malukas thing, do you expect him to win a race? We're obviously not expecting him to win the championship in year 1 at Penske, but do you expect him to win a race, or what would you set that over-under of race wins at?
I would set it at 0.5.
Okay.
I would take the over. I think he wins a race.
Okay.
What about you?
I'd like to say yes, but think about all the management turnover that Penske's had. You just lost your most experienced driver who was with you since 2009. He was one of the all-time IndyCar greats, top 5, at least statistically, in Will Power. Are we in an era, and I think it's safe to say this first thing, but I would say Chip Ganassi Racing is the best team in IndyCar, and that's been true for about 5 years now. Yes, Will Power won the title in 22, and Newgarden won the Indy 500 in 23 and 24, but in terms of overall competing for championships, Chip Ganassi Racing has surpassed Team Penske. I mean, yes, they're tied overall, but obviously Ganassi tied them in number of championships won in way less time.
Right.
Because Penske's been around since 68 or whatever. But is it safe to say, when you look at this team, there are 0 championship contenders? Or would you still say 1 with McLaughlin?
No, I would say there's a 0.
Because, I mean, McLaughlin is good enough to get there, but we've not seen him truly challenge for a championship. I mean, he's had some good, last year was obviously a disaster for pretty much everyone at Team Penske, but outside of that, he's had some good runs. But he's still not finished higher than 3rd, and really not been, from what I can recall, in 23 and 24, truly been in the championship fight. I mean, in 24, it was Palou versus Power, and Power had the seatbelt issue, and that was it. 23, I can't really recall, but I think Palou had already wrapped it up as well. So, and that was with a second for him at Laguna Seca. So,
yeah,
is it like, they're talented on the ovals, especially short ovals, and they have Joseph Newgarden, who's a 2-time Indy 500 winner. But where would you slot this lineup of Team Penske compared to other teams? Like, obviously, I would say Ganassi's at the top. Yes. But then with Penske and McLaren and Andretti, how would you rate second, third, fourth?
And how I'm looking at the 2026 driver lineup, and what I think, I am putting them probably third. I'm putting them behind Andretti.
Okay.
With Power and Kirkwood.
Mm-hmm.
I still think they're better than the Pato and Lundgaard combination. You can make an argument to flip-flop them.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, I'd still put the lineup of Penske ahead. But I think Andretti, at least on track, has the edge. And I think, too, when you look at Scott McLaughlin, and this is probably a conversation for another day, but I'll just plant the seed right now. Now, 5 full seasons in IndyCar. We knew that the learning curve was going to be considerable for Scott McLaughlin. However, no Indy 500 wins, no championships, no runner-up finishes. He has 0 top 5 finishes in the Indy 500 and only 1 top 10. Has Scott McLaughlin been a disappointment at Team Penske?
Ooh.
Because you are hired by Team Penske to do 2 things.
Mm-hmm.
Win championships and number 1, win 500s. He has done neither in 5 years.
I mean, the highlights the Indy 500 pole coming in 24.
Right, and he didn't even finish in the top 5 that year.
Yeah, and he has struggled at Indy overall. I mean, that's a good question.
Maybe we'll debate this, and we have plenty of time in the offseason. Yeah. But just for people to start thinking about it, I'm not...
I mean, he's not a bust,
no,
but
no.
Is he essentially a Ryan Briscoe? Wins a handful of races, never truly... I mean, Briscoe, though, did compete for a championship in 2009.
Correct. I think Scott McLaughlin has. I mean, even you look at 2024, the what if was St. Pete, of course, but won 3 races, finished third. I mean, back-to-back third-place finishes, and then drops to 10th. He was on the ascendancy, right?
Yeah.
Going into 2025, and then everything fell down. But I think Scott McLaughlin has something to prove. We talk so much about Joseph Newgarden, and Scott McLaughlin we just kind of toss in there because we still, at least me in a way, still look at him as he's still a new-ish driver to the formula. But he's not. He has 5 years. You are hired at Penske to win titles and win 500s, and he's done neither. So we can talk about Joseph Newgarden maybe as time has passed to do those things. We look at Scott McLaughlin and say his time was never there. And if we're talking about disappointments, I feel like Roger Penske, in hiring Scott McLaughlin to run his IndyCar team and run an IndyCar on his team, expected more than what we've gotten from Scott McLaughlin over the last 5 years. I think that's fair.
I also would say, though, he's been pretty good.
Yes. But the expectations running for Team Penske are so high.
Yes.
That they're very difficult to.
And I guess my point in ranking the teams is, have we reached a new era? Like, Penske's decidedly behind Chip Ganassi Racing.
Yes, but up to last year, 2024,
it was neck and neck.
It was, yeah. I mean, I'd still put Ganassi ahead. I don't think 1 year makes or breaks you. It's a huge year for 2026 for Team Penske to ensure that 2025 was a blip on the radar, but you also can't overlook 2025 either. This time next year, are we having the conversation where, hey, Team Penske is right there with Chip Ganassi again? Maybe, but as of right now, you can't put him in the same area code as Ganassi.
Yeah, and I think with Penske stepping away from the day-to-day operations of the team, obviously some top leaders ousted from the cheating scandal back in May. It was really strike 2 for them. And, as Penske's era as the dominant team, at least in IndyCar, like they're still doing quite well in NASCAR and obviously in IMSA as well with the Porsche Penske Motorsports. But in IndyCar, are they a step behind, or was this past season a blip? I guess it's one of those what-if questions, but I found kind of interesting.
Well, I think it too is when you have a team that's been its legacy is behind one person, and Chip Ganassi Racing is going to face this at some point too, is when you've been built and reached a level of success on the back of one person, Roger Penske, that when that person steps away, and then couple that with losing the hierarchy of your, I mean, the plans were there. There was a succession plan in place, and these guys groomed, particular Tim Cindric, for years, for two decades, whatever, to ascend, and then that goes away. So I think Penske is going through what is natural when you've been built by one person, and then two, what is caused by when your succession plan is upset by the firings you had. And I think too, Chip Ganassi Racing is going to face that at some point. I think maybe people think, well, Mike Hall just did, but Mike Hall's not getting any younger either.
It'll be Taylor Kyle probably.
Yeah, maybe, but he hasn't been there for very long.
No.
So
Mike Hall's stepson, by the way.
Yes, correct. But it's like you look at that and say it's different than, let's say, McLaren, right? Who it's
a corporation.
It's a corporation, right? It's further enough removed from who started it that it's humming along, right? So that's a very good question to propose with Chip Ganassi Racing. We're seeing the drop off with Team Penske when the patriarch steps away and new people have to run things. You're going to see that eventually with Chip Ganassi Racing. And do we see a similar drop once Chip Ganassi is like, hey, maybe he lives into his 90s like Roger and just sticks around. Who knows? But Chip isn't getting younger. Mike Hall isn't getting any younger. So it's just a natural thing. Now we have to see if Team Penske gets it back together and comes back in 2026. I wouldn't be surprised if Roger Penske is as hands-on this offseason with his team than he's been since he took over IndyCar.
I would agree. And for the record, yes, I would put Andretti, based on their 26 driver lineup, second. And then I would go Penske and then McLaren. I do say Malukas wins a race, but yeah, I like that over-under set at a half. For that. You still have to feel good with Team Penske's, even the year they had in their short oval package, and you add a race at Phoenix. I know it's not a short oval, but it's an oval. And then that's a short oval.
Is it a short oval? It's less than a mile?
Well, it's not less than a mile.
Define short oval. I look at short oval as like mile or less, but I think it's a mile and a quarter.
I think you're right. It is. No, it's a mile.
It's a mile. So, okay, yeah, shortish oval. But you look at Penske still has speed at places like Gateway and Iowa,
Milwaukee, Nashville.
Right. So I think Malukas can win one of those races.
For sure. I mean, look, he was looking good until he was taken out in Nashville. Running in second, he was the best of the rest because no one was touching Pato until that tire failure
absolutely.
in the season finale. All right, let's get to the other tidbits from silly season. Marshall Pruitt with a good article on Racer.com talking about Malukas' move, where everything else stands. And at Foyt, he says, despite hearing positive things about Rinus VeeKay being on his way to the Penske affiliated program, I've had confirmation it isn't happening. So cross off VeeKay to Foyt, which it felt like almost a done deal.
Well, not only that,
but then you get to the next detail. Whew. Among the options, Jacob Abel said to be a candidate for pairing with Santino Ferrucci. Connor Daly also in the conversation, which that would be funny if Connor Daly and Santino Ferrucci are teammates.
Sign me up for that.
That would be wild.
You're going to have that dynamic plus Romain Grosjean back in the series?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yes. But a budget needed for the number 4 Chevy, Pruitt says, or until the team finds its own sponsorship to hire a driver. It also sounds like, according to the mailbag, the Penske alliance is not being renewed. Is that right?
We don't know if it was a one-and-done deal with Malukas to begin with.
But, I mean, they had it before with Ferrucci.
That's true. That is true. So, no, that's disastrous for AJ Foyt Racing because of what they've been able to accomplish with that technical alliance. And maybe it's a thing with Team Penske is like, look, we got to get our own crap together. We really don't have time or personnel to be helping you out right now. I could totally understand that. But now all of a sudden Foyt is back with no alliance, needing money for that second car. It's like, you're going to back to square one. You're going to put Jacob Abel in that seat, which, gives you nothing other than a check.
Or you put Connor Daly in, who clashes with Santino Ferrucci. So what's the team dynamic? Either way, fascinating and maybe not in the best way for Foyt.
So where do we look at now for VK then?
Yeah, he has a ride. That's what everyone's saying.
It's not Juncos, is it?
That's my guess. Juncos or Rahal. That's my guess. Marshall Pruitt had other notes. This was interesting with Arrow McLaren. Lundgaard did a test, and I saw these photos online. They did a high altitude test in Utah at the road course. It's apparently not known as Miller Motorsports Park anymore, but IndyCar doesn't have any high altitude events on its upcoming schedule, but with Mexico City and Denver on the horizon, had a learning curve in Utah. Was a smart move by Chevy. Thought that was an interesting note there.
We've mentioned Miller Motorsports Park as a potential spot for an IndyCar race, a long time ago before Denver was even on the radar. No, I think it's smart. And then, of course, because we overanalyze everything, we asked ourselves, well, why isn't Honda doing that too?
Right.
But Honda wouldn't do it if they're not going to be around after 2026. So
reading the tea leaves
could be
there.
something, could be nothing. But this is what we do. It's a long off season, folks.
Pruitt said it will be a surprise if Romain Grosjean or Dennis Hauger aren't in one of the Coyne cars. Obviously, Hauger in one. And he said, but since it's Coyne, be prepared for a surprise. ECR set, Juncos, VK not returning to Coyne, not driving for Foyt. He said, I haven't heard VK's name mentioned in relation to Rahal. So Juncos could be the new team leader. They also have interest in Linus Lundqvist and Connor Daly as well in terms of, but they'll obviously need some funds to make that happen.
Do you think Rinus VeeKay overplayed his hand?
I think he had something all sealed up and it fell through. I think the Foyt thing was done and then something changed.
I think
the Penske partnership, maybe that's what changed.
Yeah, that's a great point. If AJ Foyt was under the impression that the Penske support for that four was going to continue, even financially, at least somewhat, it made sense to put Rinus VeeKay in that seat. But if Team Penske said, no, we're not doing that anymore, we got our own problems to figure out. And then two was like, well, we're not going to fund Rinus VeeKay anyway because he's not on our radar to put in one of our seats at any point. So we're not going to pay for it. Totally. But I like your theory because I don't think Rinus VeeKay leaves Coyne without something clearly better.
Yes.
Almost a sure thing. Juncos is not a better ride. RLL, in my opinion, is not a better ride. And that's it. That's the only thing that's open.
But is it a better ride than Foyt without the Penske partnership?
Oh, yes. But with that alliance, it definitely would have been. But yeah, something happened, and now Rinus VeeKay is unfortunately kind of in the wind, and he's going to end up somewhere that probably is not as good of a situation as it was last year, and that was Coyne before their alliance with Andretti, right? So that's tough. I don't know. Rinus VeeKay should call Dale and be like, you know what?
Right? Is there still a chance that he comes back to Coyne?
I know
it's been said he's not returning,
but
yes.
Yeah, I'm at least trying. If I'm Rinus VeeKay, right?
And then there's Rahal and the third car with DeFrancesco, which we've talked about at length. They didn't make leader circle, and there's allegedly a performance clause in his contract that he wouldn't return if they didn't make leader circle. And Pruitt kind of tosses this out there that there's a chance maybe they don't go with that third car. He said, watch this space.
Which I feel like would be a very smart decision.
And that would be a chartered entry, would it not?
Correct. So what would that mean? Like here's a hypothetical and I don't know the answer. If you have three charters and you're Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan, and you say, you know what, for at least a year, we're not going to run a third car. Do you have to sell that third charter or do you just sit on it for a year? Are you forced to sell it?
I would think you'd have to sell it.
I would think so too. But if they're like, hey, IndyCar, we're just not going to run a third for a year to try to get our crap together? I don't know.
And then a final thing from Jaron Dimmendahl, who's from the Netherlands, covers IndyCar. He said, based on what I'm hearing in the drafty parking garage, I suspect we'll see at least 2 more rookies joining in 2026. Keep an eye on your socials next week. So, based on that.
In IndyCar?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
right
obviously we have Hauger.
One.
Yeah.
Hauger.
So, 2 more.
He's my Rookie of the Year favorite right now.
Yeah, well, I think he's everyone's Rookie of the Year favorite.
Well, because there's only one rookie.
Yeah. But, so we look at Indy Lights first of guys who could move up. I mean, Kyle Collette's kind of been thrown around. You look at, could a Loki Hughes get the funding to make it happen?
I don't think so. I think you're looking
Salvador D'Alba.
I just, none of those names.
We know Miles Rowe isn't moving up.
No, Miles Rowe isn't.
Is there someone who's further back who just has a massive check? Not that I'm aware of.
Not that I know of. I think Kyle Collette is benefited by coming back and trying to win the championship. Same for Loki Hughes. Miles Rowe's going to try to do it.
And then other rookies, I mean, we're talking F2, F3? I mean, and that's where it's a complete wild card.
That's
where
I
I'm
think you're coming
sure.
from. I just, and let alone, I don't know if there's anybody in Super Formula and Formula E. And so I don't see anybody else from Lights moving up for next year.
So something else to keep in mind. I think that covers all of the silly season stuff. Was there anything we missed from the mailbag that was silly season related?
Nothing silly season. We have the Jack Harvey news.
Yes, which he's back with Invest, and they didn't mention anything about a second entry for the Indy 500. I would assume, though, that is still happening.
Well, you had an interesting tidbit, I don't know where you got it from, was the potential 4th car for McLaren for the 500.
Yes. Yeah,
now,
trackside. Kevin Lee,
that's right.
Said, this is what I read, to be honest, I did not catch it audio version, but that Ryan Hunter-Reay is the favorite. Now, they hyped up, especially in that interview with Zach Brown and Nathan Brown of the Indy Star, talking, it would be big or mega. I forget the exact words they used for that 4th car, and they were hoping to have a test, early winter. Obviously, I don't think that fits the bill in terms of outside IndyCar, but inside IndyCar, that would be a big hire.
Yeah, I guess the way it was hyped up, though, you and I agree. It was Daniel Ricciardo.
I think that's who it was, and then he retired.
Correct. I think there was interest there to run Rick at the Indianapolis 500 in a McLaren car. He raced for McLaren as recently as 2022. Had a couple more years. He was a sub driver for AlphaTauri, and then the RBs. Well, they're now the Racing Bulls, but they had that Visa long name in 2024.
No, well, yeah, now they're Racing Bulls.
Yeah, but whatever it was, like the V Carb, that's what it was, wasn't it? V Carb's what they're called. Anyway, he raced that. Now he's out of Formula One. He retired from racing. But I do think there was discussion with Zach Brown to do the Indianapolis 500. But I think Rick was just like, nah, I'm going to be done.
Now, there is one other name that still is a strong possibility in terms of they're interested, they want to do it, they just have to be able to get it to the finish line. And that's Kyle Busch. And the word was mega that they talked about. But Brown told IndyStar back before this, I think we're going to do a test first. When we do that test, it's going to be a bit of a giveaway on who it is because I don't think we'll be able to do a top secret test. And Nathan Brown had the same conversation. Daniel Ricciardo, Jenson Button, Sebastian Vettel. And then, could Kyle Busch be that other option? I mean, Connor Zilisch, maybe. I don't think he's a big enough name outside of NASCAR and hardcore U.S. motorsports fans. Kyle Busch, though, would definitely fit the bill. But I think Ricciardo or possibly Jenson Button were those first choices, or even Vettel. Any of those three would be massive. We can throw out Ricciardo. It would be great to see Kyle Busch finally get a shot because he wants to do it. Someone's got to help him get it there.
He wants to do it. I just don't know if Kyle Busch wants to do the double. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's openly said that he's wanted to do the double. I just see that as something he's going to check mark off once he's done full-time in Cup. in my opinion. And I don't know if the experience for Kyle Larson the last couple years has helped.
He's not. He's obviously not back next year.
No, but I feel like I think there was enough negatives that Kyle Larson would have talked to Kyle Busch about logistics and all that stuff. Not necessarily experience, but logistics. For Kyle Busch to maybe like, now's not the right time. That's just my opinion. I don't know. But I feel like Kyle Busch will check mark that off once he's done in Cup, which may not be very long.
Yeah. At this rate, he is. It's been a struggle for him of late.
Yeah, absolutely.
In Cup. All right. If you agree or disagree with us, we'd love for you to interact with us. You can always find us on social media. IndyCar Podcast, the handle on Twitter/X, also on Instagram. On Facebook, just search for New Track Record. You can email us your questions, comments, rants, concerns, newtrackrecordpodcast@gmail.com. And you can support us via Patreon, patreon.com/newtrackrecord. And as always, download and listen on your favorite podcasting platform, whether that is Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your podcasts. Mailbag time, and kind of shorter this week, obviously. Had a lot of discussion about NASCAR and TV ratings as F1 is inching closer, IndyCar for that matter, inching closer on the season average. But NASCAR considering changing the playoff. Who knows if they actually do it. But some other notes from the mailbag this week. You go back. First off, this is on silly season stuff from Racer, and I said interesting options at Foyt. Daguerre said a bleak outlook for Linus again. Yeah, Linus Lundqvist feels like Oliver Askew 2.0, where just not like you get a top ride and you even had some highlights, but just never a fair shot. Lynn_IndyCar said, how is Juncos going to pay Linus or VK? Daily brought sponsors and they are tied to him. Another great question, right?
Well, that, Juncos is looking for an investor, right?
Unless they're merging with Prema, for example, or something like that. Who knows?
And it's been quiet on the Prema front. Is Prema, if they do stick around, going to need at least one paying driver to continue? I don't know. But we shall see. But, it's unfortunate for Linus Lundqvist. He's definitely a talent. But,
maybe he goes to Rahal.
I mean, and I think he did very good for Ganassi in 2024.
And he got a pole.
It's not like he went out there and was just terrible with Ganassi. They just had to downsize. And Linus Lundqvist, unfortunately, doesn't bring much money. It's a tale as old as time in motorsports. This is not unique to Linus Lundqvist, but it's the most recent example of a very good driver not having an opportunity because he lacks funds. And he's not getting any younger, too. 26 is still young, but you're rapidly getting moved out of the young driver to the middle-aged driver, and that can be tough. It can be very tough to find your way back in once you get into your upper 20s.
Lynn also saying, I'm going to miss my favorite IndyCar silly season tradition, car 18 TBA, car 51 TBA.
Right?
If we get them both by Halloween, what are we going to talk about in December and January and February?
Prema's going to have to drag things out.
Yeah,
for us.
I guess. Other mailbag entries. Let's see. This from Patrick_Stankus. Thinking outside of the box a little for remaining seats. Abel to number 4 Foyt. Okay. Grosjean to TBA Coyne. Whatever the number is, probably 18. Daly to 76 Juncos. Prema scales back to one car with Schwartzman. Brian Reinbold purchases number 30 charter from Rahal, VK, to be Brian Reinbold driver. Coyne does third car for Indy. All fascinating options.
Interesting. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if this is a rule or not, or if it's just a highly a guideline, but do you have to run 2 cars to be a team in IndyCar with the charter system? Or is it just that's how it's worked out?
I think that's how it's worked out. I'll be honest, I don't remember a lot of the parameters of the charter system besides you own the charter until you sell it, right, and that only the charter cars are eligible for leader circle.
Correct. I just don't
24
know.
charters, 22 leader circle spots. Yeah. Beyond that, I'll be honest, I don't really remember how that plays out.
I don't know if it was required or highly suggested or it just makes the most sense.
I mean, it makes the most sense to have at least 2 cars from scaling purposes.
Correct. I just don't know if that's a mandate. I don't know if there's a thing that says you have to have multiple charters to run. You have to have multiple cars.
If we have that Rahal charter for sale, that will be a fascinating off-season story. I would be surprised if that's the case.
I would love to see one of those for sale, whether it's a RLL one, whether it's a Prema one, whether it's Prema 2. I want to see that process. And I think a lot of people do, both inside and outside the paddock. How much would one of those go for, right?
Also, I mean, look, it's 26. You'll have 26 and 27 with the current car, and then boom, new car. So is it going to sell for that much? Because like the assets are only going to be used for 2
the charter
seasons?
would be more than the actual car.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's what they're trying to build. They want the charter to be pricey. It means something. But we haven't seen an example of a charter for sale yet. Could we see one this offseason?
So that's a look at the mailbag. I told you it was short and sweet. Let's get to news and notes. And the series formerly known as Indy Lights unveiled their 2026 schedule today. They open at St. Pete. They do go to Arlington. Doubleheaders at Barber, IMS Road Course. Then off to Detroit, Gateway, doubleheader at Road America, doubleheader at Mid-Ohio, Nashville, Portland, Milwaukee, doubleheader at Laguna Seca to close out the season. So no Long Beach. MarshallPruittRacer.com said it could be possible for 27 Lights returning to Long Beach. A lot of doubleheaders, 3 ovals, and with that, Trackside Online saying they're expecting 22 to 24 full-time Lights entries in 26. Waiting on all the announcements. And then they have that cap at 24. So either way, going to be a full field schedule. I mean, it's cool they're racing at Arlington. They at least have 3 ovals. I know everyone's going to complain no Freedom 100, but that's not going to change as long as Penske Entertainment is in charge of that series. All in all, though, I think the doubleheaders are a good thing for this series. They're not good for IndyCar, but I think they're good for this series. You just hope you could maybe get a couple more oval races mixed in. I understand no Phoenix.
Right.
But,
well, and Iowa goes away, obviously.
Yeah.
Not going to Iowa.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to maybe put in a doubleheader at an oval, but I understand.
Yeah, cost-wise.
Cost-wise, if you put it in the wall Saturday, who's to say any of these teams can fix it in time for Sunday? I get it. But sounds like it's going to be another healthy year for entries, which is great.
For sure. And then I don't know if you saw this all over social media. Doug Bowles and IMS Museum posting. So they were fixing a bump in turn 2 at the Speedway and doing a repaving project. They had to obviously, tear up the surface, and they uncovered the original crushed rock and tar surface from 1909. They have that in display in the IMS Museum, along with the current surface and then the Culver blocks as well, the bricks.
Pretty cool, huh?
Very cool.
That's pre-Brickyard, folks.
Yeah.
That's just crushed rock and tar. It was pretty cool. So now in the museum, they have all 3 surfaces, right?
Yes.
Displayed. So it wasn't like the borehole they did several years ago where the core where you could see that, but it was just a layered piece. It was pretty cool to see.
Very cool indeed. And a lot of great pictures. Just look at social media on any of those platforms. Other Lights news I did not get to. Nikita Johnson, full-time with Cape Motorsports for 2026.
Max Garcia.
Mm-hmm. Garcia, who won
Pro 2000, right?
Yes.
I think
he did a handful of Lights races at the end of the season, I believe, as well. But
he's won. He won USF 2024, won Pro 2025. Mm-hmm. So moving on up.
And chose Able Motorsports, which I thought was interesting.
And you know how old he is? He's still 16 years old.
16? Yeah. Oh, my God.
So he's going to be 17 years old when the season
So he could be
starts
18. If he wins the championship, which he's going to have some stiff competition.
Yeah.
We already know Miles Rowe is coming back. Nikita Johnson should be stiff competition as well. There'll be several others. But wow, I mean, he could be an 18-year-old in IndyCar, which would be insane.
Insanity. So, yeah, he's well on his way.
So that a bit of Lights news and a couple things from the Racer mailbag. I think they're
There wasn't nothing much other than, seems like this time of year we have to have people still complaining about not having any racing and IndyCar racing in the fall. And all you got to do is look at the NASCAR ratings to understand why. NFL is king. College football is king.
Yes.
Or queen to the NFL.
Mexico City, only real option for IndyCar in Mexico, which we assume that. VK has a ride to be announced, according to Pruitt. That's really about it on the Racer mailbag. And just a couple things left to get to. In fact, let's talk international races.
Sure.
One of our favorite off-season topics. And Brazilian media putting it out there that Interlagos could be on the docket for IndyCar in 2027. Now,
it was a reporter that mentioned this. He is the IndyCar Formula manager in Brazil. And it was also mentioned that during the IndyCar broadcasts in Brazil over the course of the season, there were a couple mentions of Interlagos and IndyCar partnering up potentially in 2027. Now, we're suckers for taking any of this in with a grain of salt, but we've also taken other rumors seriously that had less than this.
Yeah. I mean, this guy covers
there could be
IndyCar
something there. Maybe. Potentially.
This would be another good race to do Super Bowl Sunday, especially because Brazil is actually, I think, a time zone ahead of Eastern time, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, maybe.
So that would be good.
Formula One already goes to Interlagos. Formula E goes to Interlagos.
Maybe you do Dutch GP, Interlagos, and, I don't know, Japan or Australia or something.
Crazy.
3 international races. We've heard this before, right?
Yeah. Look, I'd welcome Interlagos. I don't want it to be a preseason non-points event. If it's going to be on the schedule, it needs to be a points event. Just run it. That's the season opener, and then you have your quote-unquote big stateside season opener at St. Pete or something like that. But we'll see. We've heard this before, folks. We've heard this before.
Alex Palou got to see the clay mock-up of his face that will then eventually go in the sterling silver Borg Warner trophy. Pretty cool. Did the session, and Will Barron's able to make the clay model for him. Also pretty cool. Great news. A suspect was arrested that stole Greg Moore's IndyCar helmet, which has been recovered.
Excellent.
So very good news there. I don't know if we've talked about this, but Class of 99 by John Oriovitz is now out from Octane Press. So you can, I believe, pre-order that. They're set to go out, I think, in a couple weeks' time. So I'll try to get Oreo on to talk about his book.
It will be on both of our Christmas lists.
Yes, for sure. Indeed. Alex Palou, I mentioned him. He also has a new streetwear line, limited drop coming out. He kind of teased it, so we'll see when that comes out. And some sad news, Robert Clark, who was behind Honda Performance Development, which is now Honda Racing US, passed away at the age of 75. Obviously very instrumental in Honda American Motorsports and what they did. All right, time for tweets of the week.
Yes.
And we start with Nathan Brown of the Indy Star. Call me crazy, but seems if you got your new driver in the number 12 signed, announced and cleared to work, that should allow you to release the driver he's replacing from his contract that still has 3.5 months on it, where he'll perform no more meaningful work, but that's just me.
Yep, but motorsports contracts are funky.
Yes, they are. And we have Scott McLaughlin learning some new dialogue to connect with my teammate David Malukas, Slay, and it's a lot of Gen Z words. I don't know if you know any of these, bet, cap, no cap, slay, riz, drip, bruh,
I get
I'm
in
dead,
trouble if I
sus,
try to use these at home.
8, and left no crumbs, for real or for real, so on and so forth. I actually did know most of those.
Yes. Do we use them very much? No. I do try to use them around.
You got to use them around your team.
Yes, especially cap and no cap. And I intentionally switch them up.
And then Scott McLaughlin also posted a video.
Oh, this is amazing.
And it's his daughter running into the dishwasher that was open. His wife was, I think, like emptying out in her like little walker thing. And he posted that with his video of his crash on the pace laps of the Series Indy 500. He said, "What can I say? Talent runs in the family."
It's
at least he can laugh about it now.
He can laugh about it now.
That's the key.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Anything that we missed?
I don't think so.
Now, you have teased this random split era driver of the week. So is this going to be as big of a deal as James Hinchcliffe getting his first look at an F1 car
No,
tomorrow?
It's not. I just got excited because I had yet to look at the lineup for the 2008 Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach, which was the last event for then the Champ Car World Series. And I found somebody that I've never heard of, Juho Anala.
Who?
Juho Anala, a Finnish racing driver.
Ooh, Rocket Sports. Interesting.
Only race that Juho Anala competed in IndyCar, Champ Car, whatever.
You found the asterisk in the random split era driver of the week, because the 2008 race, yes, that does count because that was a split race.
Correct.
The 2008 race at Long Beach. Wow.
Precisely. Juho Anala with Rocket Sports, as you mentioned, raced for Rocket Sports in that 2008 race, Long Beach Grand Prix. He finished 18th. The final Champ Car race, he was knocked out by mechanical problems after 42 laps after qualifying last. Later in the year, he made 2 starts in the Finnish Super Touring Championship. He did Formula 4. He did British Formula 3. He did a couple years of Formula 3, International Formula Master Series in 2007, before getting that chance at the Grand Prix of Long Beach. Drove the Panos DP01.
Such a great race
which
car.
We can all agree was an amazing race that didn't get very much, right? It was 2007 was its only year.
Only full year, yeah.
Very much just an absolutely beautiful car. And that's what our guy Juho Anala drove. Born February 24th, 1984. He was born in Lapua, which is obviously in Finland, a town and municipality in Finland's South Ostrobothnia region. I know you guys have one of your summer homes.
Yeah.
In South Bothnia. But Juho Anala, I was way too excited to find this guy a stellar entry in our random split era driver of the week archive.
Now, are there any other, I'm just like looking, are there other?
I don't want to spoil it. I didn't want to look anymore.
Because you got to like make sure you're adding to the list, because we've done this for so many years now.
But I every week I'm like, I don't know if I can find somebody. So when I found this guy, and then I didn't look at the rest of the lineup in that race, because I was like, I want it to be a surprise, because I need to mine this as much as I possibly can, as long as I possibly can. So to find somebody that A, nobody's heard of, and B, wasn't on the list, an absolute gem we were able to find this week.
I think I've already found another driver that would fit the bill, if I'm not mistaken.
Can't wait to do some research.
Yes, I did. So, but yeah, that's going to be a fun race and list to pull from for sure.
Yeah, it may give us another month of random split era drivers of the week. Who knows?
No doubt.
We'll have to see.
All right, that does it for us. For Justin Kinney, I'm Caleb Batch. Thanks for joining us on another edition of New Track Record Podcast.